number 46,853.
Hello everyone, Silver here, and welcome back to another video on my channel. When this video goes up, the beta is going to be live, and everyone's going to be able to jump back into it after we've all been waiting patiently this week. So while everyone is enjoying the beta again, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk about the shotguns for the game. They've been a source of some hot discussion online, so let's get into it. I do hate to be that guy that has to remove the blinds from everyone's eyes, but shotguns have always been a menace in the Battlefield series. I've seen and read all sorts of posts about how busted the shotgun feels in Battlefield 6, and especially for the assault class, having it in your back pocket. But all we have to do is look back to the old games like Battlefield 1, or even further back and look at games like Battlefield 4. Let's take a quick look at some of the older clips from Battlefield 4, where the shotguns were just as good as they were in Battlefield 6. Take a look. So I know the clip wasn't great in quality, but that's because I recorded that clip way back on the original Xbox One. But it just kind of goes to show that the shotguns in the series have always been decently strong. And I know that clip was also on a hardcore server, but when used correctly at the correct range and proper positioning, all the shotguns have been always super good. Of course, the map size matters when I'm playing Operation Locker, but for the beta, I mean, a lot of people have been discussing the maps as well. There's been a hot debate over the maps and how small they are, except for Liberation Peak here, obviously. The devs have already been trying to calm the players by promising maps with a scale in mind and have proper pacing to match them, of course. But I'll obviously have to discuss that in a later video, maybe after the beta is done, once we get our hands on the game a little bit longer. So what is the shotgun that I'm talking about with Battlefield 6? Of course, I'm talking about the M87A1. This gun has been an absolute menace in close quarters engagements. If you found yourself in a close range with a player using that pump action shotgun, unless they had terrible aim, you were going to be knocked on your ass. I certainly had fun with it, but at some point it felt like I was able to engage in ranges that the gun had zero business being effective at. I think that maybe the range for the weapon should be tweaked a bit, maybe lowered or mess with the bullet spread, but we haven't even gotten to use the other 3 shotguns that are coming in the full release. If you haven't seen the video of the full weapon roster yet, then I would highly recommend going to look for those after this video, because some of the weapons that are coming out during the launch of this game are going to be very exciting to use. Just from this beta alone, I've seen many clips of players absolutely mowing down entire squads with the M87, and I saw even more clips actually of people complaining about the shotgun, and I get it. I know from experience shotguns from, say, Battlefield 1 and 4 were some of the scariest weapons when you were running through either the trenches or the tight corridors of Operation Metro or Locker. If I could find any of the old footage I captured back then of Battlefield 1, I would absolutely show that to you, but some of those clips are 9 years old, and I don't think my capture card was able to do very well back then. So if I had any of those clips, I would absolutely show them here. I think the reason that the shotguns in Battlefield 6 feel as good as they do is because the maps are mostly made for infantry. They're a lot smaller than we're used to. They feel like some of the close infantry and close quarters battle maps that we saw from Battlefield 3 and 4. I mean, game modes like, Breakthrough here on Liberation Peak, a shotgun is actually pretty viable. I talked about how there's 3 more weapons coming to the game during the full release. We're definitely going to be seeing 2 semi-automatic shotguns, being the Saiga and the Benelli M4. We're going to also see another pump-action shotgun, and it's actually going to be a dual-barrel shotgun that you load 2 shells at a time into. I imagine that these weapons are going to be unlocked a little bit later in the progression skill tree, and I am very curious if we're going to see it in the open beta. Of course, you're probably very aware if they're in there or not, because this video is going to go up when the beta is live. So now the question is whether or not the devs are going to decide on nerfing the shotguns, or if they're just going to keep them the same. Because for me personally, I think they're in an okay spot. I think they have a bit of a range issue, but other than that, if you're up close and personal with a shotgun, you should be losing that fight 100% of the time. If you wanted my own personal tweaks to the gun, I think the amount of ammo that the gun gets should be far less. The assault class already has less ammo than usual, but I think it should have maybe 8 shots max. I think the shotgun should be more of a breach weapon. You should be able to use it to knock down windows and knock down, you know, doors. But if the assault class is always going to have a second primary and they start putting in the other shotguns, what happens when the assault class has 2 auto shotguns and another one that fires 2 shells at the same time? You know, back in the older battlefields, you had to actively choose your primary weapon to be a shotgun, so you didn't really see that many people using them because everyone focused mostly on assault rifles or submachine guns, and of course those were all class-based, so if you're playing closed weapons, especially in Battlefield 6, you might not even see that many shotguns, but of course, if you're playing the assault class, you have an option of a second primary, and most people are picking the shotgun. Of course, when the full game releases, we're going to see a lot of new gadgets and a lot of things that we aren't fully aware of what's going to come to each class, but maybe people will pick something other than a shotgun as their third weapon. And of course, the maps may end up being a lot bigger. There's going to be 5 other maps that we're not aware of. We're getting a 4th one for the beta. I believe it's the Manhattan map, and it should be another infantry base, so expect a lot of shotguns running around. And I'm not trying to say these things in a bad way. I think the assault class is perfectly fine having a shotgun as its third weapon. Again, you know, if you're getting into an encounter and that person is close enough to pump you full of lead with a buckshot, you deserve to lose that fight. But you know, for me, I mean, I do complain sometimes when I get killed by these shotguns. Sometimes it just doesn't feel good when you're running full speed through a hallway or trying to be careful and someone whips around the corner and drops you on your ass with a shotgun. You know, there may be a huge chance that when the full game comes out and everyone gets access to the Saiga and the Benelli, it's going to be even worse when you have people running around with semi-automatic shotguns that can be fired as fast as your trigger finger can pull. But it is nice to know that the gun customization isn't super outlandish. You're not taking off the stocks of your weapon, and you're not throwing on giant drum mags and turning the gun into the fastest mobility possible, highest ammo capacity magazines that you can possibly get, like you see something like in Delta Force. With that game, you see a lot of people running full drum mag shotguns, especially the Saigas and the auto shotties that are in that game, and running through people with that gun. But it seems like with Battlefield 6, they're going for a lot more of a grounded approach, which I very much appreciate. I went through the last video talking about how I'm worried about the skins getting too out of hand, but they seem to be promising a pretty grounded approach to that, and I hope they take that same approach to the attachment system for this game, which it seems like they are. So if you're one of those people that are kind of worried or crying about the use of the shotguns from the assault class, or anyone willing to use them as a primary for their class, I would say there's not much to worry about, or you may as well just have to get used to it, because this is how it's always been for this series. You can ask anyone who is a veteran of the series, ask anyone who played Battlefield 1, and ask them how the shotguns were in that game. I just showed you a clip earlier of how good the clips are in Battlefield 4. I truly believe once we get access to some of the bigger maps, the use of the shotguns aren't going to be as noticeable, I guess, but because all of these maps are quite a bit smaller than usual and they're a lot more infantry based, we're seeing a lot of people using the shotguns, a lot of people running the assault class, whipping the shotgun out of their back pocket and mowing people down with that thing. Sure wish I had one in this clip, because it would make all this killing a lot easier. Knife kill. I truly hope that a lot of the new players that are coming into Battlefield 6, and it sure seems like there's a lot of new players, just realize that this game's had this is the 6th entry into the series. This game's got a lot of time to come together, and we've had a lot of history with Battlefield. And I know there's a lot of people who like to claim that this game is pretty much just another Call of Duty. I'm not disagreeing with them. It sure seems like this has taken a lot of inspiration from Call of Duty, just to the casual side of shooters. But maybe it's just because we haven't had a nice casual shooter like this in a while. It sure seems like in today's environment that most of the FPS games that are coming out are just solely focused on the most competitive, most skill-based matchmaking as possible. So it's just nice to be able to jump into a game, shoot as many people as possible, and get as many kills as possible, and capture some damn objectives. Anyway, that's as much time as I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like the video, comment down below for whatever you'd like to see in the future, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.